Teachers, has a student ever made you quit your job? I taught high school English for 15 years. I thought I knew how to spot a troubled kid, the ones who acted out, skipped class, started fights in the hallway. I had systems in place, referrals to counselors, conversations with parents. I was good at my job. I thought nothing could slip past me anymore. Then I had Steven in my junior year English class. Steven was quiet, the kind of quiet that blends into the back row. Never caused problems, never drew attention, always turned his work in on time. But his poetry was extraordinary. While other students wrote surface-level verses about their weekends, Steven wrote about loneliness that felt like drowning, about standing in crowded hallways and feeling invisible, about the weight of existing when nobody really sees you. I told him he had talent, real talent. He'd stay after class sometimes and we'd talk about books, Sylvia Plath, Virginia Woolf, poets who understood darkness. He seemed fine. He smiled when we talked. He said he appreciated having someone who got his writing. 3 weeks into the semester, Steven stopped coming to school. I marked him absent, then absent again. After 5 days, I sent an email to his counselor asking if everything was okay. Before anyone responded, I got called into the principal's office. Steven had taken his own life. He'd been dead for 3 days before anyone found him. The funeral was on a Saturday. I went because it felt like the right thing to do, even though I barely knew him. His mother was there, small and broken, accepting condolences from people who kept saying they had no idea he was struggling. After the service, she found me. "You're Mrs. Payne, aren't you? His English teacher?" I nodded. "Steven talked about your class, about how much he loved poetry." She reached into her purse and pulled out a composition notebook, black and white, the kind we sold in the school store. This was in his room. I've been reading through it trying to understand. There are poems in here, so many poems. I didn't know he wrote poetry. Her hands were shaking as she held it out to me. "Would you look at it, please? I need to know if there were signs I missed, if there was something I should have seen." I took the notebook home that night and sat at my kitchen table. I opened it. The first entry was dated August, the start of the school year. Page after page of poetry. Some I recognized, pieces he'd turned in for class, but most of it was new, raw, desperate. He wrote about feeling like a ghost in his own life, about watching his parents work constantly, too exhausted to really talk to him, about friends who didn't notice when he stopped responding to texts, about teachers who looked right through him in the hallways. He wrote about the weight of sadness that lived in his chest, how some days it was hard to breathe under it, how he'd gotten good at smiling so nobody would ask questions. I kept reading, tears blurring the words. Each poem was a cry for help wrapped in beautiful language, and I'd missed every single one. I'd told him he had talent. I'd never asked if he was okay. The poems got darker as I turned the pages. September bled into October. The handwriting got shakier, more frantic. Then I found it. The last entry, dated the day before he died. The title made my heart stop. Mrs. Payne. The poem was about me, about how he'd stood outside my classroom after school 3 different times, working up the courage to knock on the door and ask for help, about how each time he'd seen me grading papers or typing on my computer, looking busy and stressed, about how he'd convinced himself I had enough to deal with, that his problems weren't worth my time, that he'd be a burden. The last stanza destroyed me. I almost knocked today, almost said the words, "But you looked tired," and I thought maybe it's better if I just disappear quietly, so I won't be one more thing you have to fix. Below the poem, in smaller handwriting, almost like an afterthought. "Thank you for seeing my poetry, Mrs. Payne. I wish I'd been brave enough to let you see me." Steven had been standing outside my door, ready to ask for help, and I'd been too buried in paperwork to notice. I turned in my resignation the next week. 15 years of teaching, and I couldn't save the one kid who'd been right in front of me, asking to be seen.